Good afternoon everyone and welcome to the video review of Gunlord, NG dev team's latest effort. I must say I wasn't expecting much from this game, but in the end it's the best product NG dev team ever designed, although it's hardly original. The game is also riddled with several problems that make Gunlord a playable game but not a great game. Graphics and core mechanics must be explained together, as they borrow heavily from Turrican, so heavily that some enemies and even all graphical assets in the later levels look as a straight rip-off from all Turrican games developed by Factor 5. There are 5 main guns the Gunlord can use: Spread Shot, Phoenix, and Bounce. There isn't any power-up mechanic in place, and collecting one of the 3 colored coded icons will switch to the corresponding weapon. Weapon icons are found in crates hidden until shot at. The 2 remaining guns are time limited. There is a rocket launcher which divides into rebounding spheres upon contact, and a wave gun with side bouncing beams that has the unfortunate side effect of locking the gun horizontally, making it essentially useless. It must be noted that the spread shot is the most useful weapon in the game. The more I played, the more I kept myself away from the other guns, as their usefulness was rather limited. The spread shot allows to kill all small enemies fast, with almost no aiming, and during boss fights it's able to damage the boss and repel destroyable bullets and staying away from other attacks at the same time. Guardian is also equipped with a snake beam, incredibly powerful and able to shoot through walls. Using it will lock Guardian in place and automatically shot diagonally up. The snake beam grows progressively short during use and it's hard to aim at a specific location. It's not simply possible to press, let's say, down to aim downward. The gun must be constantly swung around to aim down. There is no button to lock the firing direction, and the snake beam is the only solution of shooting downward without jumping, or aiming anywhere while moving in a different direction. This inability becomes painfully manifest during boss battles, where being mobile is a must. The Gunlord is also able to unleash 2 waves of blue energy that will damage or destroy enemies and remove all projectiles on the screen. Yeah, if you ever played any Turrican game, you have probably raised both eyebrows and possibly asked your family to do the same, as the description and the video make Gunlord look extremely similar to Manfred Trent's classical game. Well, you are not wrong, but Gunlord places a lot more emphasis on exploration than Turrican, giving Guardian the ability to curl up in a ball and release bombs. So, okay, this isn't exactly a completely new ability. Well, while in ball mode, Guardian moves at a higher speed than normal, allowing him to jump farther. This movement option is ultimately used only for optional level exploration, and there are only a couple of segments where curling up is required to continue in the current stage. It must be said that the standard arcade stick configuration doesn't assign ball mode to any button. It's not possible to reassign buttons mid-game, so it's paramount to assign one of the 2 remaining buttons on the arcade stick to this action before beginning. Luckily Gunlord saves the controller configuration, so it must be done only once, but why is that? Another very strange choice is to have weapon icons spawn almost on top of each other, making it impossible to quickly snatch one of them. Weapon types are randomized, and each crate can only take a finite number of hits before disappearing. I said there is little incentive to use guns aside the spreadshot, and this delivery method is one of the reasons. It's normal in shot 'em ups to have a favorite weapons or to wait for power-ups to switch to the most useful in the current situation, but you're jumping toward a group of icons is like randomly selecting an item. You don't know what the game will register last. And this brings us to hit detection. 3 examples. Hit detection is very inconsistent, and especially during boss fights it's hard to judge how big is their hitbox. This is Gunlord's biggest problem, followed shortly by how busy graphics are, especially in the first stages. There is no denying that everything in Gunlord has a lot of detail, and from stage 6 onward, graphics are beautiful. Excellent color palette, detail and clarity. The first stages, however, are much more harder to navigate because elements don't fit well together, and rather than having a working group of 4 and background sprites, everything is given the same visual priority, often making difficult to understand surfaces that can be walked on and masking incoming projectiles. The settings for the first 4 levels don't seem very inspired as well, with bland and repetitive backgrounds. It's a real shame that until level 6 the real graphical highlights of the game are the big mid and end stage bosses. Animations and color palette could have used some more work, especially when you think that this game was fought for the Neo Geo. I know that not everyone can pull out sprites on par with Metal Slug, but the opening stages of Gunlord are more fitting to a Super NES, speaking about color depth. NG Dev team should really work on not overloading graphics with detail, something they pulled out for the final stages, thankfully. The amount of care that went into those stages is remarkably higher than the rest of the game, with developers even changing bullet colors to adapt with the new backgrounds. The game runs at a constant pace except for few instances, most noticeably in level 2. There are a few hiccups here and there, but at least bosses never have any slowdowns.
Warning, boss encounter.
Gunlord offers 2 game modes, Original and Arcade, but the only difference between the two is that using a continue sends back the player at the beginning of the stage in Arcade mode, while in Original mode using a continue is like losing a life, and the player is brought back almost exactly to the same point he died, with no enemies around. Levels in Gunlord are dotted with extra lives, small and big diamonds, which make up for the secrets to find in each level. Enemies don't respawn, and environmental hazards aside, it's fun to explore the various levels, though finding everything is not extremely hard, just like progressing. At first the game might look difficult, but after understanding its mechanics, everything flows a bit too well, with only bosses posing a real threat. Enemy types are repeated way too often, and their AI is not great. Some of the larger enemies will just stand there taking hits without firing back. Sometimes it's due to their limited attack patterns, sometimes because they simply stand there and do nothing, even if the player is right in front of them. In fact, if hit detections were alright and locking fire direction when moving was available, Gunlord would have been even easier, and a bit less frustrating. There is no save function except for ice cores and controller configuration, so the game must be completed in one sitting. This can take up quite some time if aiming for a 100% completion rate, as levels are very large and feature multiple paths to reach their end. I have left music for last because there isn't much to say. As stated in the unboxing, I don't like the style the developers use in their games, but the tracks are a good fit, though how good they are and if they are a good substitute for Chris Yule's back tunes is up to personal preferences. In the Dreamcast version of the game there are awkward silent moments when a BGM restarts or switches to another. and the sound effects are repetitive. Unfortunately, options are so bare-boned that it's not possible to manually adjust volume for music and effects. With further refinements, Gunlord could have been a great game, even if it's a Turrican clone. It doesn't quite reach its mentor in overall quality, but it's a huge step forward for NG dev team.